My name is Jared Bledsoe from BledsoeBooks.com, and I have a very special guest here with us today. I have said previously that I have been blessed to be surrounded by very talented friends, and this gentleman just so happens to be one of my very talented friends. He is a singer, songwriter, jack of all trades, and an ultimate lover of all creativity and all creative expression. Um, Overall, immensely nice guy, and definitely a great conversationalist. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Matthew Zeiss. So, your latest album, Sure You Can Call It Country,
Yes.
has worked itself into my daily Amazon playlist. It is fantastic, my guy.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I was listening to it while I was getting ready to do this. It's like I need to amp myself up. I need to hear it. So, I would like to start off with, how did you has the past years made your creativity process different? I mean, it's been pretty crazy for everyone the past 3 years. Is there anything different about this album?
Well, that album was done, unfortunately, it was done before the last couple of years. That's why it's now only being put out. I started recording that in 2017, and then really focused on getting a band together. And we rehearsed for a long time. I was under the impression, but I really wanted to. I wanted to do shows and have people look at us and go, like, not like, oh, that was good. I wanted them to go like, who are they? So we rehearsed for like a year and then started doing shows. Shows were going great. People were absolutely loving it, which was awesome. It was really, the juice was worth the squeeze. And then COVID hit and we stopped doing shows. Of course, lasted way too long, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside. Everybody started doing things kind of individually on their own and such, and then I moved. So
Right.
yeah, but then now I wanted to just put the record out there so it's out in the world, because it's, for me, it's the best music I've ever written. And I really just wanted to put it out there. I had a review done here, as a person heard it and put it out, and they were like, oh, don't like it, saying the album was too long. And it's like, while I understand that, it's like I told the person the purpose of the album was, I had these songs, it was going to be 2 albums, but I just wanted it out there all at once. I figured I'm not really going to perform this music live right now, but I'd like it out there in the world.
I thought it was too long.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a world like today, 14 songs, most people are used to singles. We're in a single world where, they're going to be done song by song, or at least like 4 songs first and then the rest. For me, 14 songs isn't a lot for me. I'm an album person. I like listening to an album front to back. However, those songs were written as a group. I mean, at the time, I really put my my hard work into it. Just recorded. I started writing all these songs, but the plan was two albums, not one.
Right. No,
But
go ahead.
yeah. No, I was gonna say, to answer your question for real though, the creativity wise, the last couple years, it has slimmed it down. It's been, there hasn't been much to be creative about. I don't know who says creative, but creative about.
Right. No, I am an album person. So the more songs that are there to listen to,
Yeah.
I think it's better. I mean, singles are nice, but I like to have a sit down, listen to the whole thing, spend an hour and a half just grooving to the same vibe.
Yeah, exactly that. I think that's an important thing, but I think most people are so tainted by how we live now with, Instagram and other social media platforms with just quick videos, that I don't think people have the patience anymore to sit down and listen to a full record, which is unfortunate, because there are many records, like I'm a big Eagles fan. That's what really inspired that record was the way the Eagles had their process. I had watched their documentary. I had plus seen a band, Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats on TV, and I was like this is great music. Like I want to have something in my own legacy that is part of this. Um, so hearing the Eagles process, and you listen to something like Hotel California
Mm,
front to back, and it's just, I mean, you talk about an entire record front to back. You're like, I will listen to this start to
yeah,
finish, and it's gonna be, and it was great. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm an album person. Singles are, like you said, they're nice, they're cool, but an album,
I mean that, especially if you like the artist. I want
yeah,
more material.
exactly that. Yes, absolutely, exactly. It's. I feel like it's very similar to binge watching a show,
Yep.
or watching just the episode every week. There is something nice to the episode a week deal, but it's also really nice to sit down and just have more material to keep watching, and you're so satisfied. And if you want to, you can go back and watch it again. And it's the same with an album. It's like, you know what, I'll listen to this front to back, but there's sometimes it's super nice to just be able to go boom right there and then rewind if you got to.
Yeah. I know
I
we
can
live
just
in
tell
a
the first song.
Yeah. I know we live in a world where attention spans are slowly shortening, but no, albums are definitely the best.
I agree. I don't think we're alone on that either. I think there's still people that enjoy it. I think um, the country fan base is really still into albums. I think they still do singles too, but I think the country demographic is more into singles, and that's not why I said for the album. Sure, you can call it country. That was purely because people were hearing my songs for years, and they're like, "Man, that's good. It's country." I'm like, no, no, it's not. It's not. It's like because the Eagles or John Mellencamp,
Yeah,
that's not country music. That's rock and roll. Let's just
right.
or classic rock, whatever you want to call it. But if you played Hotel California for a new today's ear who had never heard it before, said this is a song just came out, those people would say, "Oh, it's a country song." Like, no,
Yeah. No, it's not.
yeah, no. So
Yeah.
it was or Hurt So Good, same thing. And so this record, I was like, I'll just go with it. Sure, you can call it country. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect title. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, these are the best songs that you had written because when I was working on this sheet of questions, originally I had written one of the questions out with like, the little intro into it. And I'm like, I've listened to all your work. Not only are you a friend, but I'm also a fan. And
Thank you.
it's like, you're welcome. And originally I had said like something along the lines of, this is probably your best work that I have heard. But then I'm like, I don't know if he might get offended at that. So I took it now.
No, 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 not a fan. I mean, an artist matures. Any person creatively matures, and my first record, I've had this discussion with my wife because like you listen to that music and it's not music I would listen to anymore either. Like my first
Yeah.
record, but I'm still super proud of it. It was
Oh yeah.
I was 20 years old when I put out my first record, and it was like material that I had written over the course of a year or so. And at that point of your life, in that mentality, you're like, like I want to be a singer. I'm going to record this music. You don't have time in your mind to filter out. You're not structured enough to really be educated on the process. That takes time.
Yeah.
And any artist, when you listen to, even still speaking of like the Eagles, when you listen to their very first record, or you listen to Elvis's first record, then obviously I'm going to use those two as references. And then you go through the years and you hear the progression of voice. My
Yeah.
first record, I played it from the first time I played it for my wife, and yeah, she's like, this is not my style of music. Like, no, it's not, but it's not mine either. I tried to listen to it. It's like, and my second record, I'm still super proud of. It's not music I would want to perform, but it's like in the Billy Joel range. And then this record, this is music where I took time for the process. There was months and months. Every morning, I would wake up, go outside, listen to smooth jazz and the birds, sing, not the band, the Birds. I'd smoke some weed, and then and I would just get into the zone of music, go sit by my piano. Not that I play piano, but I can figure out a chord here and there and become
Right.
inspired. And I let the process take its time. So it was a record where I was able to sit back and be like, yes, like this is awesome music. It's for me, it's always, if you're gonna do it, it has to be something I want to listen to.
Right. No wonder it's your best work. You got the birds singing and smooth jazz and weed.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh,
That's a cocktail for success.
success. Yeah, exactly. Um, I mean, okay, so the next question, do you have a favorite song from the album or a favorite experience or story perhaps?
uh Favorite song, like if I were to I there's a lot of them that I really like. I The first song off the album, The Runaround, that's a song written by a songwriter, singer-songwriter Vanessa Collier, and she recorded at a studio on Long Island that I had relationships with, and I heard the song and I was like, man, I want to do this song. My version's significantly different. I say our version, but when I say our, it's me and Sean Power, my producer, because it's really a co a co record of creativity, because I wrote a lot of the melodies and the lyrics, and then he would come in and write all the music. But for that one, he absolutely arranged that one. I sent him the song. I was like, I want to do this, and it's so awesome for me. It reminds me of a modern Elvis type of song.
Right.
It's nice when you don't have to write a song and you just get to come in and perform it, because I like performing. So for me, when you write a song, I'm sure as you can think, writing anything, through your creative process, when you have to go through the same page over and over again and rewrites on, you're like,
Yep.
I don't even know if I like this anymore. You're like,
Yep.
is this even good? And then even if it is good, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So like, if you had to, read your book every day to somebody, which I'm sure you did for, reasons of, hey, tell me how you think this sounds.
Hmm.
Eventually you get bored of it. So it's nice when you just get like, think of, yeah, if you get to read somebody else's book, it's the same getting to perform another song. But so the Runaround, She's So Dangerous, I
Hmm.
love that song. I think that's super fun. It's super catchy. It's like Hall and Oates or Huey Lewis. I love the claps. That song came about because uh, I, like you said, we're all adults. I had
Yeah.
almost shit myself one day, and I had said to my buddy, I was like, "Oh man, things are getting dangerous," and and then and then and then I kind of wrote a song around the word "dangerous," and my producer's like, "That's ridiculous. Just say dangerous." He's like, "That's so stupid. Don't make up words." And that was really good advice. And then the song, uh, I mean, I hate to sound like that, but I just love them all. Like, there's so many on that album that I'm so proud of. Also, The Bridge Is Yours to Burn, or Was Yours to Burn. My producer wrote that with, I had gone through a breakup, and my buddy said to me, I guess the bridge was always yours to burn. And I was like, that's a great title for a song, dude.
Yeah.
And so, but I knew I didn't want to write it. I knew that's a song I just want to sing. Um, so I sent it to my producer, him and his songwriting partner, Steve Lester. They wrote it. I said to do it like the Eagles, The Best of Your Love.
Mhm.
And they just nailed that song, nailed it. Yeah, it sounds like a cliche, but it's like that album is like they're all my babies. I love every song on that record.
It's definitely not a cliche. And, I know to some people that it might sound corny for us to sit here and say, we love our own work,
Yeah,
but, so much of us goes into it. It would be bad if we didn't love it and if it wasn't our babies.
yeah, exactly. Because how's anybody else going to love it if you're not super about it? It's to have that as part of. Yeah, you have to love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I put my own record on. It's you know, it's also a pride thing, and you're proud of it. So like you
Right.
again, it comes down to musically, and I'm sure the same for your book is it's like you want it has to be something I would want.
Yeah.
And so when I'm creating something, it's like I'm going to create it to the point where I want to listen to it. So I'll
Right.
listen to it. You know, if it was by another artist, I'd still listen to it. Um, for me, it was the idea of like creating a greatest hits album. Um, that was the mentality where you want every song on the record to have something. Um, I think people probably wouldn't understand unless they're also part of a creative process. I think most people would probably find it self-indulgent to enjoy your own work, you know.
Yeah. I can see how some people can, take it the wrong way. I remember when I started my podcast last year, and I was going on about our saving grace and how, I was proud of the work that I had done. I know it might sound kind of cliche, but it's true. It was a lot of years of, life experiences leading up to that point and all of the time and work that went into it. And one of my friends listened to the episode and they're like, if someone didn't know you, you might come across as a little cocky. Like, well, I think that's not how I'm trying to come across, but
Yeah,
after all this time and effort into it, I think I have the right to be just a little bit cocky. Just
sure.
a little. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. You have. As you're talking, I'm looking. I was like, I don't even see your book on your shelf. It's not even on this. It should be.
You probably, I know you can't see it because my lighting sucks, but it's
Oh,
right
I see it.
there. Yeah, yeah, you
Yep.
can barely see it. Right
Yeah.
next to the Game of Thrones series, the Shadow and Bone series, and all of E.L. James's books.
Oh, because I was like, I feel like you should have it. You should have the cover blown up and framed. Um, but yeah, but that's exactly people who wouldn't. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, what you're the person said. If I didn't know you, you might cough cocky. Be like, yeah, but it's also how you're talking about it. I'm sure it would be cocky if you were like, oh, it's the best book ever written. You know, no one's ever been better than this.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're saying. You know,
No.
that's not what I'm saying. It's like this is the best I've done.
Yeah. It's like, believe me, I
So
have enough insecurities to humble myself every single day of my life. I know this isn't the greatest book in history, but you know what? It's probably going to be the greatest one that I've written just because of all of the experiences and the personal ties and the characters that have gone into it.
mhm.
It's my
I
child.
also doubt it'll be the best you've ever written. I'm sure you'll keep going. You know, that's have you mean because or I'm sure you've written many but or things before, but that's the first one you've ever printed. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm certain that you'll have, you know, I'm sure by their life is long, you'll have
Oh,
way
yeah.
more experiences.
No, I say, and I don't even know how many times I've said this to people now, but I could write another 5,000 books in my very long, hopefully, lifetime. But that one will still be my child because of
Yeah,
the personal ties to it. But no, I've been writing
absolutely.
for a little over 10 years now.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure the pride within that is, I mean, to have it in your hand as a
Yeah.
physical, beautiful. Also, I love the way the cover feels. I love that type of texture. It's
Uh,
so obsessive. I could just sit there and feel the book. I love that type of texture on a book. It's so, I don't even know what they call that type of finish, but um,
it's a matte finish.
yes, I know, but like it's
It's almost like
it's like a
velvet.
yes, it's like modern matte finish, which
Mm.
is my superhero name, by the way. Modern matte. No, no, but it has that smooth. It's just I don't know. There's just something about modern books. My sister has a couple too that she's gotten that she's like she knows I'm texturally, you know, so it's like I don't even know what you'd call dependent. So
Uh-huh.
she's like feel this book, and it's like oh my god, why does it feel so good? And
Right.
so that's the same with that book. When I got it, I was like, oh man, that book's still in the States. I had such a limited space in my one suitcase. Getting things mailed, I should have it mailed because getting things mailed from the States is also wildly expensive. So every trip I make, I try to take things with me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going to be jumping around on this list. I
Yeah,
already
that's
know
fine.
because I had something down here about the book and the work that you did on the title. And I was going to start talking about how, you are literally a jack of all trades. You do music, you've done script writing, graphic design work. I mean, your resume has got to be freaking huge.
It it's something. Another thing I'm proud of is just being able to do a lot of things. That was a goal of mine. I didn't go to college. A big goal of mine was to uh, do a little bit of everything because I wanted to be well-rounded as a human being. And kind of out of school, my goal was just getting a bunch of jobs doing different shit. But creatively, I've always written. When I was younger, I would always write stories that kept me going. I played with action figures for way too long, and I was telling this to my daughter because as to not get embarrassed of um or just not being self-conscious about being judged for doing things that other people your age aren't necessarily doing. Not that I was like 20 doing this stuff, but I was still like
Yeah.
14 years old or maybe 13, whatever it is. But for me, those were my actors. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Those figures were my actors, and it would create this creative process in my brain. And so I was always writing, and then music was always something I loved to do. Also, graphics developed. I did enjoy it, but I really had to hone it in um, because of music. My friend and teacher Holly Jonas of Hollywood Design Pro, she had this is the time MySpace was still huge, and she runs Total Rocky, like the biggest fan base for Rocky movies, and she was looking for somebody to do the Rocky voice, and I auditioned for it. Through that, her and I developed a really strong friendship and relationship, and she taught me how to produce better graphics. And it was so important because musically, uh, it's if you're not going to do it, if you can't do it yourself, it's wildly expensive to
Right.
do graphics and have people do it. So I had to really dive into it, and it turns out I enjoy it. I'm good at it, and now that's my full time job.
Right.
Um, but it developed purely because as a necessity.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and anything creative gets my fuel going. I just, it's something to it, film, whatever. I just love the creative exchange too between yourself and somebody else when you're doing it together. There's such a great energy flow that develops between one another. So at any opportunity to be creative, I take it. Cooking,
Hmm.
bartending, whatever it is, anything that involves some sort of creative outlet, it's for me.
Right. No, I feel the same way, and I have to laugh a little bit because I'm in the same exact boat on a lot of things you just said. I love anything that has to do with creative expression, but I had my Barbies until I was about 13 years old, so I feel you there, and I don't
It's
think there's
just
anything wrong with
fun.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, who
no.
cares? I didn't give a shit at the time either. Like, there wasn't a part of me that was embarrassed. And
Yeah.
like, my daughter, it's trying to convince because I get it too now. Now it's probably a lot harder when everything's on social media and you see what people are doing. But it's
Hmm.
like, but you don't see what people are. You don't see everything people are doing. I'm sure there are plenty of people. It's such a freedom. Again, it's you as well as a writer. When you're doing such a thing, you're writing. Whether people understand that or not, kids are that's their creative journey. That's how it starts, is doing that. You're creating lines, you're creating characters. um yeah, I did that. I loved that. I mean, I couldn't wait to do that. Every day I did that was the best part of my day at the time. I was just telling it to my wife the other day that I remember so well, like not being able, like being so excited, okay, I'm going to use this figure and this figure. I'm going to do it over there So
Uh,
this area looks like sand and it's going to be a desert scene, like all this,
yeah,
planning.
yeah. I mean, if you don't have an active imagination, how are you supposed to create anything?
I agree. I think active imagination is important, and I think it's something that's being lost, honestly. I
Yes.
think, it sounds like a very old man thing to say, but I think that younger generations' imaginations are getting lost. I really do. I think I'm very happy when I hear our kids kind of doing that and making voices and doing like different like characters, hear them, whatever it is,
Mm,
because the iPad is so relevant to them that they're just in games, they're doing this, they're doing that. Like it's nice when they just get to create something on their own, and so
yeah.
yeah, I there's still going to be people always where that is what fuels them, but I think that yeah, we'll see. I'm sure older generations said the same thing about us as well. I'm sure of it. I'm sure when Game Boy came out and stuff, they're losing their creativity, and here we are.
I don't know. I really no one's gonna know what the future is gonna be like,
No,
but you definitely don't sound like an old man saying that because I've been saying that stuff for years now. Watching my nieces grow up, they have technology all the time and they're always on it. And I feel like that could be beneficial for building imagination if you use it right,
yeah,
but it stops you from having to think for yourself.
I agree. Yeah, yeah. There's you know, my son plays a game where they have to invent characters and things. So that's uh, slightly, you get creative doing that, inventing the characters, but you're still limited to what's in the game
Right.
to an extent, where our minds are able to do whatever. Our daughter, she draws all the time, and that I like because that is you. That's you to paper. You're creating what it is.
Right.
And I think that's fantastic. I think having technology, like you said about your nieces, having the technology so readily available all the time. But if you do use it correctly, like you said, it can be wonderful. It can be a great opportunity to let your creative juices fly if you use it right. And I feel like a lot of people use it for the regular things, myself included. There's not to say that I'm not on Instagram and my phone and things like that, but
Yeah.
uh, it's nice to let go of it sometimes. I don't know what school is like for kids, but I hope that there is still art classes that allows them to really fuel their creative minds.
Right. No, I mean, I know that, this generation, you and I are definitely a couple years apart in age, but
Yeah,
I think we still have a lot of the same principles. And you can definitely tell that there is a generation gap between us and the teenagers of today's
yeah.
world.
There's a gap, but
Yeah,
not. I don't, and I think at some point though with this, it's not age where it is just principles and probably upbringing is my assumption.
true.
Because I also know many people with at my own age who don't feel have the same principles. Some people that are older that don't have the same principles.
Also true. I can't tell you how many times I've walked around telling myself about, just going through Walmart alone. You see someone that you can definitely tell, they're up in age and they're doing something stupid. And I'm thinking to myself, you should know better. You're old enough to know better.
Yeah, I miss
Very
that.
good.
Yeah,
So jumping back to the top, it
yeah,
would be very rude of me to you and him to not bring up Elvis Presley
yeah.
because I still remember the first time I heard one of your impressions of him, and I nearly fell out of my damn chair. Like no shit, I nearly fell out of my chair. I need to know, like, what was it about him? Was it just his music? Was it him? Like, where did that start for you?
I mean, it's everything. My dad's a huge fan, and he would put headphones on my mom's belly when I was in there and play Elvis music. Um, and I mean, so it had to have some impression because from the day I can remember, I was a fan. You know, I remember being super young, watching his concerts on TV that my, you know, either my dad recorded on VHS or whatever. But um, I've always everything. I mean, because he has everything. It's visuals, it's the sound, his charisma and charm. There's a reason he is who he is to the world, and much like so many other people, I saw that and was like, I want to be just like this guy, you know. And for a small portion of time, I was like, I want to be that. And then there's times where you're like, all right, I want to be an interpretation of that. You know, you still want to be yourself. Um, for a long time, uh, I you know, I would practice every day to sound like him. I would listen to him. I would listen to Tom Jones and just practice these really solid vocals and until you get them right. And yeah, with Elvis, it was something that my father's a singer as well. And he also had, you know, took time to develop that sound, and I took it a notch further and just kept going and going and going until I felt I had it. And you know, I did a couple shows when I was a little younger as Elvis, and I found it very unrewarding. um for me for me, there's a lot of people that certainly feel differently and they have the right to. For me, it felt like they weren't applauding you, they were
Yeah.
applauding a ghost, you know.
Right.
So I didn't continue with it at the time. I have an Elvis act that I've been putting together now, um, but it's different. It's still me being me,
Mhm.
um, interpreting other songs that Elvis didn't do, but in an Elvisy energy and fashion. Because then the applause are still for you. The and I shouldn't even say applause because it's not like it's not necessarily just that, but it's the appreciation. It's not having to concentrate on emulating somebody else's behavior and stuff because there's, you know, that's not for me.
Right.
Um, but yeah, he just the coolest man. You look at him and you see George Harrison had said it and he saw Elvis at Madison Square Garden. He said Elvis came out and he looked like this tan god in this white suit. I mean, the dude was great. He was so, you know, he kept it light too.
Yeah.
I try to discuss that. Like, I mean, I don't know, if you watched his concerts, but like you
Hmm.
watch it and he's so light on stage, like in regards to his persona, where he's not taking himself too seriously, but then at the same time he is, you know. And he rides that line so perfectly where he's able to goof around on stage and then still snap right back into it and be a serious singer. And it makes the audience feel like they're part of it because like they're in on the joke. They were there seeing him joke around with his band, or everybody who's ever in the audience with him always said it felt like he was singing right to you.
Right.
um yeah, he's the best. There's no doubt. It's hard not to be. Yeah, I feel like if you watch him, it's hard not to be really into him. You know, I enjoy watching like reaction videos to him
Mhm.
online because it's like people's first time seeing him or something like that, and you can watch it come over them like a wave of just holy shit, like
Yeah.
wow, I get it. Because you know they hear the cliches, they hear a hound dog, they hear a jailhouse rock, but then you watch them hear a song that matters, and they watch it and you just watch it wash over them and like what? And you watch these women like crawling out of their skin, being like, what the hell did I just watch? So it's
Yeah.
hard not to.
Yeah. No, my mom, she's loved him since she was 4. So I grew up with him too, and I'm right there with you. He had everything.
Oh, yeah, he did. There's no doubt. I mean, you're talking about somebody who's been gone since 1977, and still everybody in the world knows who he is. That's biblical. You know,
Yeah.
he's a modern day Messiah. There is a there is a religion vibe about him. People who are into him worship him in this way. They seek solitude in his voice. They, you know, it's comfort for people. It is truly. I mean, decor. How many southern homes in the U.S. are covered with Elvis plates on the walls? You know,
Oh,
like it's very biblical, and I feel like there's not anybody else really that you could say that about in the entertainment industry or in any industry, that
yeah,
there is this, you know, aura about this person that has created such longevity with them gone from this physical plane.
right. I mean, he's literally, American royalty.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I when Lisa Marie passed away, that's exactly the term I used when my wife and I were discussing, you know, why it made international news. I mean, it was on the front pages of papers here,
right.
and it's like, because there is no American royalty, but that is American royalty. Elvis Presley legacy is American royalty, and when she passed away, that's a princess, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. I mean, you hear the title, the only daughter of Elvis Presley.
Yeah,
That's a huge title.
yeah, yeah, and what there's no other entertainer that would make a difference like that. There's no other entertainer where headlines are going to be made, being like, oh well, this person passed away. You know, as much as I love Tom Jones, and I do, you know, it's not the same. You're not gonna Mark Jones, Tom's son, isn't gonna make front page news come his time in the future. You know, it's just not the same. Elvis, what I mean, you're talking about somebody who literally shook the earth.
Hmm. In a time where shaking the earth was highly frowned upon, let alone.
Yeah, I mean, but also never done again. I feel like,
Yeah,
you know, there are, of course there are many entertainers that are substantial, that have captured the world's attention, but none, none like Elvis. And many of the entertainers from the time knew that and supported that information because it's the truth. You know, even when Elvis wasn't at the top of, people's uh, ear, I guess, for lack of a better term, you know, when the world wasn't watching and didn't really care as much, he was still Elvis. It didn't
yeah.
matter.
Have you seen the movie?
Yes.
What did you
Um,
think of it?
uh, it was inaccurate, and I didn't care for that. And I understand there's a lot of people like, oh yeah, but it's a movie, and I get that. But the trouble is, you know, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, but it wasn't a biopic. Yes, but it's being advertised as one. And because of that, there are a lot of people that are going to take what they see as the gospel truth
Right.
and be like, oh man, I didn't know that. It's like, yeah, because it's not true. But there are other people, and it has been proven that there are a lot of people that it's opening the door to the Elvis world to a lot of new people.
Right.
There are people who are becoming more obsessed with the actor than Elvis
Hmm.
himself, and that's fine. That's going to happen. I get that. But for me, I love the Kurt Russell movie from '79, and also inaccurate, and I'm aware of that. However, I feel like he captured the true energy of Elvis in such a better way. Um, it was, and that's not to Austin Butler
Yeah,
did a great job. I mean,
absolutely.
he really, you can tell he did his homework. I mean, regardless of the movie being inaccurate, that dude did his job.
Yeah.
He studied that. He did a wonderful job. For me, as a fan as well, Kurt Russell, there's just some, it wasn't an impersonation. I feel like Austin did what a lot of tribute artists do, and really just study it rather than become it.
Right.
And I'm sure there's others that'll argue that that's fine, but I think Kurt's thing was he studied it and then somehow just embodied that, and it was still, yeah, it just seems so natural. But he's also just the coolest dude ever. So
Yeah,
Kurt
yeah.
Russell is as cool as it gets. um, but yeah, the movie, the great thing that came out of it was that it Elvis was on front pages again. He was in headlines once again. I mean, I think Elvis I think I read somewhere that he was back in the top 100 Spotify listened to artists, which is freaking crazy.
Yeah,
So, at a time like now, when if the fact that his music made the top 100 again, I think is fantastic.
right. I mean, it definitely opened a whole generation to Elvis because just
Yeah,
hearing Elvis being played in your grandma's house is a little
yeah,
different from seeing a headlining movie.
absolutely, absolutely correct. Yeah, yeah. To know that, and it did that. It did that all around the world, where people saw this was this new award-winning movie with this award-winning actor and this, that, and the other thing. I'm gonna go see it, and they made it very fantastical. Um, they made it very a spectacle. Like it had you, if you saw Gatsby,
Mm,
um, Gatsby was the same. It was the same spectacle. So, um, yeah, it opened up doors for sure.
right. Oh, goodness. Well, I know that Elvis has influenced you and inspired you substantially.
Mm-hmm.
And you've talked about the Eagles. Is there
Oh
anyone
yeah.
else that's, like inspired you over the years?
I would say also might sound cliche. My father, um, growing up listening to the music he had written, was wildly influential to me, um, because here's a person who I know better than anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know these singers and songwriters, but you have this close, of course, close relationship with your parents, and seeing or hearing songs my father wrote to me were, two of the best songs I've ever known. He had two songs. I mean, he had a lot of songs that I listened to, but there were two. I Am the Boat, which I re-recorded on my first record,
Mm,
and the song called "Singing the Blues and Rock and Roll," and I would listen to those like anybody else is listening to the greatest hits, and that was so influential to me because it was music that I thought sounded great. It was music that he wrote personally, and I wanted to emulate that. I wanted to do the same thing because it meant that it was attainable. It meant if he could do it, I could do it. Um, and his voice and my voice are so similar where, yeah, it was just wildly influential to me. Tom Jones, um, also wildly influential to me. Beach Boys, Huey Lewis. I mean, I remember when I think I turned 6 years old, my parents bought me a stack of CDs. It was Elvis, Beach Boys, Huey Lewis, Lion King, Aladdin, Jan and Dean. Uh, I had a cassette tape with MC Hammer and Michael Jackson. I had
nice.
the Grease CD.
Uh,
So like all this music, my parents were also constantly playing doo-wop. That was a huge thing for me,
mm,
doo-wop music. And there's an entertainment aspect that comes with it. Jackie Wilson, Little Richard, Chuck Berry. There's another thing I did differently than a lot of people that are influenced by Elvis was I didn't just listen to Elvis music. I listened to the music that influenced Elvis.
listen.
I figured if the best way to become like Elvis is to go through the same musical journey that he went through.
Mm,
Uh, I was also inspired by opera, same as him. A lot of country music. My parents, I should say my parents played a lot of music. My dad himself played a lot of old country, like 1940s country, all the way up to the 70s, and just constantly different stuff. He played bubblegum pop from the 60s, just a wide range of hits that influenced me in a huge way.
right. First of all, your parents sound freaking awesome. Um, but I'm like right there because, you know, I don't even really watch TV these days. I'm either writing or I'm listening to music or I'm listening to music while I'm writing. That's literally my daily thing. And normally, generally speaking, when I'm writing, I'm always listening to, like relaxing piano music, something that doesn't take much listening to.
Yep, I get that.
When I'm doing things throughout my house, I'll have 1 minute I got songs from Dirty Dancing on, 1 minute I'm listening to songs from Grease. Next thing you know, I'm listening to opera. Josh Groban just came on. Or Luke Bryan with, his tailgate songs are coming on.
Yeah.
It's always something different.
I get that though too. Also, I should say I love listening to instrumentals that you don't really have to concentrate on, that just soothe your soul. I do that while I'm working all the time. I put on a smooth jazz playlist or while I'm cooking. It's just so nice. What did you just say? You said an artist. God damn it.
Josh Groban,
I don't really care for Josh Groban,
Luke
but
Bryan.
Luke, no, did you say somebody else? I can't remember.
Um, I said Dirty Dancing and
Dirty
Grease.
Dancing.
Yes.
That I love that soundtrack.
Yes.
I love that. I would rock out to that sound. There's like two on vinyl. There were two. There was the
Mhm.
main songs, and then there were like the subsidiary songs. And those songs were the ones that were really like, wow, Otis Redding and things like that. Love Man. Oh, I love that
Uh-huh.
song. Cause I'm a love man.
Uh-huh.
So good. And like you instantly remember the scene too.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
it's like I carried a watermelon.
I have watched that movie so many times I've lost count.
It's a great movie. I watched it with my wife last year was the last time I think I watched it, and like I'm annoying. And when I watch it, I make voices up and like fuck up lines that are in the movie just to entertain myself. And like the scene, that's great scene though. And now it's become this like inside joke, my wife and I, where baby goes to see Patrick Swayze, and he and to be like, I'm scared that I'll leave this room and never feel the same way I feel again that I'm with you. And and like it goes to him and he's just sitting there with his shirt off, and I was like, these are my nipples. They're so dark and
Oh
small.
my God.
and
Oh, I'm
and
never gonna be able to watch that the same way again.
no, now every time you watch it or anybody that listens to this, think about him going, my nipples are so dark and small.
Yeah. Oh
And
God.
yeah, so now my wife and I, every time I'll constantly always say that when someone's got their shirt, I'll be like, they're so dark and small.
Oh shit. Yeah, I don't know if I would have hit you or if I would have laughed my ass off or both.
She laughed so hard at the time, and so did I. Because my it's like my brain is split down the middle. There's two people. There's the one listening and the one who's talking this crazy shit.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah, no, I just not too long ago, I think it was October to be specific, I introduced my nieces to the movie. And
Nice.
I love Patrick Swayze
Oh yeah.
naturally. And it was funny because my oldest niece was sitting next to me, and the second that Johnny came out, and he's got his hair slicked back, and he's holding
Uh
his leather jacket, I grabbed her by the shoulders. I'm like, "It's Patrick Swayze! It's Patrick
huh.
Swayze!" And she looked at me, and she's just like, "I love you." Yeah,
Patrick was so cool. You
yeah,
know,
he was.
he had a great vibe about him. His energy was there's very few actors I feel like who have that something, that extra something, and he obviously had that for sure.
No, I have his autobiography, and that was really good as well.
Oh, I didn't even know there was one. I'm not much of a reader, unfortunately.
As you said, you're talking to the writer.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was really good. It was really good. It's funny because a lot of people say that you need to be a reader in order to be a writer. Now,
Hmm.
I mean, you can tell I do like reading,
Yes,
but I also prefer to sit down and write my own stories without really being influenced by the things that I've already read.
sure.
So I could
Yeah,
say that I'm a writer, but
I never was a reader, but I was always a writer. I read. I'm a big comic book dude, so
mm,
I'm sure that took some influence. But so I'm not a formatted writer, but when I write, I like it's just kind of I again it's like liking my own stories and having so many things in my head that's like, oh, I think this would be cool. Let me write this.
yeah.
Um, and then you find out it's already a thing.
Hmm.
That's always fun too. Or writing I've written stories and then like years later see a movie trailer. I'm like, I wrote this.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't had that happen to me yet, but it's happened to my dad before. And
That's kind of
not so much movies, but like, little invention things like the skateboard, right? Back in his day, he says he was the very first person to put wheels on a board and go down the sidewalk with. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But,
yeah. I mean, it was probably true for him nonetheless,
yeah,
even if it wasn't true for others. But yeah, because that can be like just because somebody else invented it doesn't mean I didn't invent it too. As long as
exactly.
you're not familiar with that thing, you
Hmm.
invented it also. It just, you didn't bring it to the public first. And I'm sure that goes with, like I said, the things I've written. I wrote a movie before Underworld.
Yes.
I was like 10, and I said to my dad, I'm like, I wrote this story called Wolfpire, and it's about this blah blah, and it took place in the 1800s type of stuff. My dad's like, that's a great idea. And like a couple years later, we both see the trailer to Underworld. My dad's like, hey, like, it's like, damn it.
Shit, someone beat me to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that was something I had worried about with Our Saving Grace as well, because there are a lot of, romance cliches out there. And you can go to the romance section in any bookstore and you'll find 15 books that almost have the same exact plot line. And that was something I was always kind of worried about, I feel like it's different enough to where it stands out by itself. But I also know that, you got the strong, grumpy, burly man and the badass chick. That seems to be kind of like a running cliche these days.
Yeah, I mean, anything that's any there's I forget what the actual phrase is, but it's like anything that can be created has already been created, or anything that can be written has already been written. But it's like it's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's the delivery. It's the little in betweens that keep things. Same thing with music. Anything that's been written has been written.
Mm,
It's how you lay it out.
yeah.
That's why movies are so shitty nowadays because it's the in betweens they're not counting on. They're counting on the main plot, forgetting that don't worry about the fact that this movie's already technically been done. Do it your way, and people will still love it for what it is.
Yeah. No, even though I know that there are multiple books that could almost come close to mine, I don't actually know with 100% certainty. It's not like I go to the Barnes Noble and sit and read of them all. But the way that I look at it is, yeah, there might be a Nicholas Sparks somewhere in the world that is
Yeah.
similar to mine, but it wasn't written by me. That was, which makes it different from the rest.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, it doesn't matter what connections there are; it's still going to be different. I mean, I think about the romance novels that are out there, like the hot, steamy romance novels. They're all the same. They're
Yeah,
all the same,
yeah,
but they keep people coming back for the last 60 years, you
hmm,
know?
yeah.
So it's
You can
lit.
only
People,
go ahead.
no, 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 you go.
Well, I was gonna say, you can only when it comes down to the hot, steamy romances, you can only
Yeah,
do, certain things a certain way, if you catch my drift. But
absolutely.
it's the story that, fills the spacers.
Fills the spacers. I
Yeah.
take it. Uh, but exactly that though. Exactly that though. It's any yeah. It's the author is going to have their own way of delivering the story, and that's why people read it. It doesn't matter. I don't care when I'm reading whatever story. I mean, again, like me as a comic book fan, I mean there are literally thousands upon thousands of the same character in the same situation, but you keep reading it. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I still like this. It doesn't matter, if you like it, you like it. Music is the same thing. I'm a country fan, and 80% of country music sounds like all the other 80% of country music, and I'm sure the
Yeah.
same goes for other genres too. But it's like, it doesn't matter. I still want to hear it.
Right. And there's just, a little bit of a difference between every single song that still makes things spicy.
Absolutely.
Would you say, because I know that you've done script writing and you've obviously done songwriting, and one of the reasons why we're here today is because and in big pearly white lights, I'm trying to build a bridge between music and literature
Sure.
because I know that there's quite a bit of similarities between,
Absolutely.
both worlds. Do you think that script writing and songwriting are kind of, one and the same in their own respective ways?
Yeah, sure. I think that, yeah, because the the song, I mean, it doesn't even matter the topic of the song, but you're developing you're developing a character, whether it's doesn't matter what the song's about. The song itself is a character, and you're developing that character. Um, so I'm a pen to paper person, and it's like drawing a map, and you'll write something, then you'll draw a line up here and write something else, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very much the same process for me personally when I've written stories. Uh, it's yeah, it's the same for me. I think you're building a character, you're building a storyline, you're building a way to draw people's attention to it. You're finding a way to keep their interest, to make them want to read it, listen to it, see it, whatever it is. Uh, I think there's yeah, I mean, there's it tells a story. It tells a story. A good song. And when I say a story, I don't even mean literally in a song.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what the song is, it's telling a story. Even if
Right.
it's a garbage song with a garbage topic, there's a story there.
Yeah.
If it's a good song, you know, let's go back to the Eagles. You listen to Hotel California, it is a story song. It
Right.
tells a story start to finish. So, yeah, you're telling a tale. And I think that's really cool to try to bridge that gap between music and literature. I think that that should be the name of your podcast, The Bridge.
Oh,
Um,
I like that.
right?
Yeah, that's really
And
good.
it's yeah, I think it's pretty easy to see the connection too. I think anybody really could figure that out. But I guess from the songwriting process, I'm sorry, from the writing process in general, there's fewer people that can understand that.
Yeah. Because I know, ironically enough, and I know not a lot of people know this about myself, but when I started out writing, um, there was a band that I was just head over heels for. It's a, classic. I'm a teenager boy band going gaga over one of the members. And I'm like, I really want to get this guy's attention. And my dad's like, well, why don't you write him a song? Now, mind you, I had never written a thing in my entire life besides school projects. They weren't
Sure.
bad, but they weren't actual stories. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I can do that. But I tried. I tried anyway, and I probably looked at my blank piece of paper for, I don't know, an hour, and nothing ever came to me. And I remember just having the thought, it's like, I could write a better love story than I could write a song. And my mom at the time, she's like, what do you know about romance? You're too young to understand this. I'm like, yeah, okay, challenge accepted. Watch me.
Yes.
And it's been 10 plus years since that time, and it's just it's snowballed into something else. But I know that if I sat down to try to write a song, it would either be kind of okay, or it would be a dumpster fire. But if I sat down to write a short story, it would be legible.
I think first off, I think it's a great title for song. If I can write a love story, I can write a song. I think it's a good title.
Take it and use it, my friend.
Um, but I think it's about structure. I mean, songs don't. They're not. Some of them aren't instant. Some of them are. It's the work you put into it. I've written both, so I can see the parallels. There is a. I don't know. I also think if you can do one, you can probably do the other. I might be wrong, but I feel like it just takes a second extra. You're gonna find your influence when you're least expecting it. If you sit down in search of a song, I feel like you're less likely to find it. I feel like the song finds you. I think I'm a believer in waves of ideas that go through this world,
Hmm.
and they hit people at certain point. You just got to catch them. If you don't catch it, it's going to go on to the next person. Um, so I think if you're sitting down to figure out an idea, it's a little different than the idea of finding you and just, uh, strike while the iron's hot, as they say. I think that's better way to do something. You like just now, right where I said, "Oh, that sounds like a good song title." If
Yeah.
I took that and started writing that on paper and just using that as a building block, if you have no building block, you need a foundation, no matter what it is, whether it's a song or a story. I think as long as you have a foundation, you'll be able to do it. So if you sat down with a title or a line that you said or heard, you're like, okay, I'll start with that. I'm sure you could do it.
Right. There have been a couple times over the years when a title, just a title alone will, hit me in the head and I'll think about it for a little while. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna make a story out of this instead because it's gonna take me less time and it's gonna be easier on my brain. But
Sure.
I know that there's a part of me that's like, one day I'm gonna do this.
But
Just to fight myself, I'm gonna do this.
put it in one of your books. Make it where one of the characters writes a song and the lyrics are on a page
Yeah,
that you wrote.
I've actually thought about that.
I think that's a good way to bridge the gap in your own creative powers. But I also understand it too. You're gonna do what feels most natural to you. That's like I would compare it to the reason I don't know how to play any of these guitars behind me is because the same thing where it's like I start learning. I'm like, oh, this is harder than it would be if I just continue to practice singing. Let me just sing something different instead of learning how to play guitar because
Right.
it's just easier to do the other one.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think a lot of times in life we kind of just stick to what we know we're good at,
Yeah.
and when we have the brain power and the creative freedom, then we just kind of branch out.
Yes. It's to challenge oneself is harder the older you get.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And you have less time to do things too.
This is true. That's a sad way to think about it, but yeah, it's true.
Oh, I just made things depressing. My bad. How do you stay inspired to keep creating?
That's tough. I would say that's tough. For me, I think uh maybe it's not tough because it's just a matter of like I said, I have multiple creative outlets
Mm.
and like my wife knows and we talk about it all the time is like that does keep me going. That's something that um if I didn't have creativity, I don't know what I would do. It really is what um it just makes me do what I do. I that helps me live. Um, so I think I do it based on necessity to breathe. And my body does it as it knows as a survival tactic that keeps me happy. It keeps me going to stay creative. Right now, I don't think I have. I couldn't sit down and write a good song right now. I
Mhm.
think it's muscle power too. It's if you don't use it, you lose it. So you got to just work
Right.
it a little bit. And I haven't for a long time. I do a lot of creative stuff graphically right now. Assembling ideas for the new music project I'm doing is more cover songs than it is anything else. So it's really the planning part of it
Yeah.
that it still fuels me in the creative things, gathering up the artistic materials to do. I still enjoy that process. So, but yeah, for me, it's survival, pure survival.
Yeah. I understand that as well. If I'm not doing something, and it's funny because I had someone ask me once, they're like, what do you like to do for fun? And I'm like, I just stared at them for a good solid second and a half because, my fun is my work
Yep.
in the sense of speaking. It's like, what do I like to do for fun? I don't know. I'm just working all the time. But my work is my fun. It would take me too long to explain that to them. So I'm like, oh, I like photography.
Yeah, yeah. But 100% though. But I think that's a fine answer when it's like, oh, what do you do for fun? Oh, I do I work. But it's like when people hear work, they're thinking oh, I go work at blah blah blah. It's like no no no. My work, what I do, what I love to do, and then it makes the most absolute sense. When I'm stressed, my job is graphic design, but when I'm stressed, I still sit by the computer and continue my graphic design because it keeps me at ease. It makes me happy. It's still being creative, and it also takes your attention off of whatever is going on in the world. You get to just have fun and enjoy yourself. I don't think everybody has that. which is why it feels weird to tell somebody who's not in the creative aspect, who doesn't have that. It's weird to tell them like, oh, this is what I do for fun, because they won't understand.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, do you work? Yeah, I'm an author.
Yeah,
Yeah, does it break in easy income? No. Marketing is a bitch. But this
yeah,
is what I do. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm making a life.
yeah. If you're doing art most of the time, you're not. I mean, of course, we all hope to make money doing what we love, but you're going to do what you love, even if you're not making money from it.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop you. It shouldn't stop you.
No. And if you're in a place in your life where you're actually able to take the time and try to work on dreams and making them come true, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. You have to go for it.
Oh, hell yeah. If you got the time and the mental capacity to do it, you absolutely have to go for it. So we've talked about your music. We've
Yeah.
talked about your graphic design work, and we've talked about Elvis and writing and a lot of fantastic topics, might I add. And there's something that I've always kind of like to ask people because, I mean, you're definitely, I would say that you're, established in your career. You know
I
what you're
wouldn't,
doing.
but I appreciate it. Yeah.
You know more than I would or the average Joe. Um, is there anything that you would tell someone that's just getting started? Something that you wish maybe someone had told
Um, Anything I would tell somebody is exactly what would get told to me, and it's do it because you want to do it. Don't go into it. I think I found um, liberation when I started focusing more on doing it because I really love it and because I want to. People, at first, I think, at least for myself, it was seeking fame and stuff that's not really important. Now, the argument could be like, yeah, because you didn't get famous, that's, and while I get it, I wouldn't want to be anymore. Like looking at the way I don't really care for that world and the people in it particularly. So I would say focus on art, like just focus on enjoying yourself. Life gets so complicated. It gets so much further complicated. Just enjoy yourself. Try to. I mean, it's really hard. A lot of older generations when they tell you advice when I was starting, and they're just like, choose something else. I would
you.
never
Yeah,
say that. I would never say choose something else.
right.
Don't choose something else. Just do it. Just do it. That my advice is also always go for it.
Hmm.
Don't be scared. People people be and delegate. Delegate is a huge advice that I would give somebody. I burnt myself out more than once. I could have had a more steady music career. My life would have turned out different, so I'm glad it didn't happen like that. But I could have had a more steady music career had I learned about delegating positions earlier on rather than doing everything myself. That you can burn yourself out. You burn
Yeah.
yourself out. It takes willpower and ego it takes ego out of it. You have to take ego out of it and realize, okay, you know what? Let me just ask that person for some help. Let
Hmm.
me see if they don't mind, barter or service, whatever it is, to create a team, because anyone who is successful, there's nobody who's successful all by themselves. There's somebody, whether they're the head of the ship or not,
Hmm.
they're not doing it by themselves. There's always somebody, whether, okay, a printing company, a company that whatever it is, doesn't matter, is delegate. So I think advice to somebody just starting is go for it, delegate, and don't let other people crush your dreams either, because there are so many people out there crushing dreams just because they don't have what it takes
Yep.
to provide themselves with enough willpower and momentum to keep moving forward. Um, like Rocky, right? Like you got to keep moving forward. That's how winning is done, and it's the truth. It's
Right.
absolute truth. Um, you have to keep on punching. You have to keep moving forward. It's yeah, just don't stop. Don't stop. Don't let people influence you in the negative way. Don't let people convince you otherwise. Your gut is usually let it guide you, you know. It's scary. It's a very scary thing to do, and that's why most people won't even try it
Right.
because you're betting on yourself. And when you're betting on yourself, you know, if you're somebody who's betting, legitimately betting, you're going to bet on you're watching two things, and you're like, okay, well, this one has experience and has this. When you're betting on yourself, whom doesn't have experience,
Hmm.
it's a tough bet, but you have to believe in yourself. So
Right.
yeah,
Uh,
um, yeah, it's that's a good question. That was a really good question because
thank you.
I feel like it is a question that a lot of people that you hear,
Hmm.
but it's a question that I don't think a lot of people answer truthfully. I feel like people answer the way they think people want to be heard.
Right. Now, I know from my own experiences that if I hadn't when I first started writing, it was good for someone that just started writing. It's if I had published that, it would have been absolute crap. And it is kind of I've been asked that question myself. And that's why I like to ask it to other people. It's like, well, what do you tell someone that wants to, to be in your career field? And it's like, just don't stop writing. Because every, when you first start out, everything's a first draft.
Of course.
Every single thing that you write is a first draft. It's gonna be crappy. You expect it to be horrible, but don't let that stop you from doing it because every single thing that you write, draw, record, create, sculpt is always going to be better than the last thing that you did. And I think that resonates for people that just started and people that have been in the business for 40 plus years.
I think that's absolutely correct. I think that's a very well thought thing to say, and it's super true. Is that the first thing is always going to be garbage. The first thing you ever write, you know, I remember the first song I ever wrote that it was I was young. I was in sixth grade, and it was called "A Circle of Fire," and somebody was like, "Oh, that's super original," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's true. I hadn't thought of it like that." Um, but yeah, you grow. There's a process. Like I said before about like my first record,
Mhm.
it's not something I would be proud of myself for writing right now,
Yeah.
but I'm proud of the person who wrote it at the time,
Mhm.
the material at the time. You grow. You can listen, and there's a lot of there's a lot of artists who look back and they insult their previous self. The quality of it. It's like why? I mean, yeah, has my quality improved? Sure, but I really appreciate those first drafts, like you said. Those first drafts are the only reason I'm able to have final drafts now.
Mhm.
Without those, the material would not be as good as it is now.
Yeah. And when you look at it this way, it's kind of interesting thought. If anyone gets famous enough, right? Like Elvis level famous and their stuff ends up in a museum, it's
Yeah,
those first drafts that are going to be listed. Not
yeah,
the current work, but the very first thing that they ever did.
absolutely true. And yeah, because and Elvis is an example of someone who he would insult his previous work, like from when he was younger. Like they asked him, like, oh, have you ever listened back to, man, they're rough, like they're rough. It's like you could say it in a more positive light. Like, of course
Yeah.
they were rough. Recording technology wasn't what it, especially in his position, from the 50s to the 70s, recording technology continued to advance. So, of course, there's going to be a difference. But you can still very much appreciate what you've done.
Yeah. I know you said that you're not really much of a reader, but has there ever been like a favorite book or a favorite author in your life?
Um,
Even if you were just like a kid reading Dr. Seuss.
I Yeah, when I was little, of course, there were books. You remember the little critters? Are you familiar
Uh,
with those books?
I think so,
Like,
yeah.
it was very similar to the whatever it is. What is it, Bernstein Bears or something like
Hmm.
that?
Yeah.
Or, very similar. But uh, there are stories that I very much enjoy that I didn't. I've read or seen the uh, or the Crypt Notes versions of.
Hmm.
I did mention earlier as a movie, I loved The Great Gatsby. Reading that, when I read that, I loved that. Count of Monte Cristo is so good to me. I like a really good revenge story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm big into revenge because I I believe in it. I support it, and
You're such a nice guy. You're sitting there talking about revenge.
yeah, yeah, no, push come to shove. I'm I believe in vengeance for sure. I mean, I'm a Batman fan.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
so if who would I be if I didn't believe in vengeance?
Yeah.
Um, no, but yeah, Count of Monte Cristo, uh, like I say, Gatsby. I would be lying and stretching the truth if I said that I had a bigger arsenal of materials that I've read. Anything I read was in high school,
Yeah.
and I've forgotten most of it since. Count de Monte Cristo was more recent, but I didn't even fully read it. The book's massive. The book's like that.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
I bought it with the intentions of reading it, and then it's like, shit, this is huge, man. And I
Uh,
was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure this movie's accurate. Boop.
yeah, yeah, I've done that too. And I'm fully guilty of that. I know that a lot of, your authors and stuff will frown upon that, but I don't even know. Um, just like Game of Thrones, for example. I watched the entire series before I ever read the books. I still haven't even touched them. They're out there. One day I'll get to them, but like,
Yeah,
just for accuracy purposes, let me watch the series first.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's easier, takes less time, less focus. Like someone's telling the story right there for me. All I got to do is watch and listen.
Yeah.
And of course, there are many examples of literature that are different than what you read. A good example of that is when you asked me of the Elvis movie.
Hmm.
Um, reading a biography. Like my wife is so well read on. I'm an Elvis fan, but she's so well educated on his life. She's read countless books, countless books. So someone like her has such a great view on his life because more than the biography, she has all this information and she can pull from all these different departments and find the truth in the middle. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think something like that is a good example of why you should read the literature aside from just watching a movie. Um, I'm just yeah, I'm not a reader. My brain isn't processed like that. I'll read the same page
Hmm.
my whole life. I'll read the same page 20 times and I'll be like, I never read any word. I read
Yeah.
nothing. Read nothing. Be like I might have said the words out loud or in my head, but I didn't process anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very guilty of that. And my biggest problem is, if I can get into the book, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it takes me so long, and it's like the moon phases have to be right. It's got to be the right tide level. The bed has to be pumped to a specific number. Like everything has to be perfect in order for me to submerge. And it's so rare that I get that quality time to myself that
Sure.
I just don't.
I
It's all
think that makes sense
unethical.
though. Some people can fall right into a book. My best friend in high school, I remember I mean, still to this day, I think he just reads constantly, and I just can't do it. But also for me, it's also I'll read something and I'll be like, and then it'll inspire something that I want to write
Yeah.
immediately. So then my brain's there instead. It's just yeah, it's a downhill spiral.
And it's funny because I'm like this. Anytime someone tells me that, they picked up our saving grace and they were hooked by just, the preface alone, it's always such a compliment because I know how hard it is for me to do that. But for
Hmm.
someone to, be able to pick it up and just automatically get hooked and start reading it, that has been one of the biggest compliments I've ever received.
When I got your book, like I didn't read, of course, a ton because I'm not a reader, and I was only in the States for 2 weeks when I got the book, so I didn't spend any time doing anything other than spending time with family. But
Right.
what I did read and what I did like was how it was written, and it made me think because my first thought was going to be, "This is going to be, I can't read." Like, I mean, I can read. Let's
Yeah.
get that clear. I can,
Yeah.
but like, I'm not a reader. But my first thought was going to be, I won't be able to do this. And from the pages I did look at, the way it was written was very much natural dialogue, and I really liked that. I thought that makes it easier to read. And then I was like, oh, I probably will be able to read this actually because of the way it's written.
Right. I really appreciate that.
And I promise I will read it for sure, or I will try. I'll try to read it. I'll say,
Yeah.
I, but like I said, from what I read, what I did like was the way it was written.
Oh, thank you. I mean, even though I've been doing this for years now, I guess you could probably call it imposter syndrome. I have no clue what the fuck I'm doing.
Nobody
So,
does until it's over.
yeah. Even now, yeah, it's been read. I've heard it read so many times, and I've read it so many times through the whole editing process. And I'm still my biggest critic, and writing style is still, constantly changing. It's a constantly developed thing. And even though I like how it all turned out and I'm completely okay with it, looking back at it now, there's already things that I would have, probably done a little bit differently in the plot itself.
That's what art is. We're always our own worst critics. There has to become a time. There's a time where you settle, for being like, all right, I think this is really good. You could pick at something forever. You
Yeah.
could keep picking it. So when I'm cooking, my wife's always like, leave it, because I'm like, I think it can use a little something, and she's like, no, no, it can't. It's fine. It's really good right now. You're gonna ruin it if you try to keep adding more.
Yep. Yeah, you
So
gotta leave good enough alone.
exactly, exactly that. Another good title for a song or a book.
It's both.
Got to leave good enough alone,
Oh, look at me. I'm just giving you a bunch of ideas tonight.
right? Or
And
yourself ideas.
no, it's probably going to be you. I give them straight to you because I just finished my first draft on book one of a series I'm working on tonight before I sat down
Very
to do
cool.
this. Thank you. So I'm starting book two. Actually, I think I still have the document up on my computer right now.
I
So
think that's great.
I've
Awesome.
got like 90 different things going on in my head right now. It's a
I
mess.
get you. I've been trying. I wrote a children's book that I'm gonna try to put out. Um, that I look forward to adding. That I'm not trying to be an author the way you are, but to
Yeah.
put out a kid's book would be very fun.
Yeah, I think there's a whole. I mean, it's a different world when you're writing, books for children.
Of course,
Yeah,
as there should be.
yeah. You don't have to worry about, scary plot holes or anything. It's easy and it flows.
Super easy.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask because I always ask anyone that I interview this question, and I know that your life has changed like substantially over the past couple of years. Congratulations on getting married, by the
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything that you might have up your sleeve that you can kind of tease for anyone that's listening or watching that you might be working on?
I mean, the children's book. It's called Big Tree, Little Tree. Every tree's a good tree.
Love
Um, and then there's this Elvis project. It's my last name, Zeiss, an international Elvis tribute, and I figured it was fitting, from New York, but I'm now, of course, living in Sweden with my wife, who is from here. Um, yeah, I'm working on that very hard right now. Gathered up a band from a few towns over, uh, a group of great musicians, and we're really focusing on, like I mentioned earlier briefly, is music Elvis didn't perform himself, but music he could have performed if he, well, whether the song was out when he was alive or after he had passed already, there were
it.
songs he didn't do but could have done. I think that that's super fun. I did a show here in November just me and some tracks because I didn't get a band yet together, and people loved it. It was a very risky thing because I was told people here in Sweden don't care for uh, people in white, like the white suits, but
Uh,
it's it's all about owning it too. Like I said, it wasn't an impersonation, and there are people that find that term. There are people in the Elvis community who find that term disrespectful. It's not disrespectful. If you're wearing a wig and a jumpsuit,
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with saying you're impersonating. You can be an impersonator and be a tribute artist at the exact same time.
right.
And because they prefer that term, and I understand it, but you can be doing both.
Yeah,
What I'm doing is far less impersonation. There's no wig and sideburns because I don't like myself without a beard. I'm keeping my beard. I'm keeping my hair. Um, the suits are reminiscent of Elvis jumpsuits, but they're not exactly jumpsuits.
right.
And I'm doing songs that no one's heard him sing before. But there was a risk factor to that when I did the show. It's also I'm an American who doesn't speak Swedish yet. I'm
Yeah,
getting up there. Everybody here speaks English, but still, it's rude not to. If I want to know the native tongue, of course, but I
right.
don't yet. And getting up there in a white suit, singing songs Elvis never sang, and speaking complete English, but it went over great. So that's the project I'm doing now is furthering that venture and trying to take that around Europe, and then possibly if I'm lucky, it would be cool to still, of course, do a show or two in the States.
Right.
Um, but I'd say that's pretty much it. Is that um, in the children's book?
Well, I gotta tell you now that if you ever do find yourself on a tour in the States,
Yes,
I better have some damn good tickets, my guy.
damn well sure of it. Oh, you're in Florida, right?
Yeah.
The company I work for is in Florida, so I'm sure that'll be a good way to focus a show is in Florida. I don't remember what part of Florida he's in, but I do graphics exclusively pretty much for etafestivals.com, 49 Place Productions, and they do 10 Elvis festivals in the States a year, and
Wow.
they are based out of Florida. And so I'm sure I'll be able to work a show in Florida, and I will certainly have tickets for you and your mother.
Yeah. It's much appreciated. We'll have to drag my dad along with us as well.
Of course.
He's not as much of an Elvis fan as we are, but he definitely respects his legacy.
Then there will be tickets for him too,
That
and the Yorkie if everything's okay.
Yeah, yeah. While I've been waiting for the files to convert over, I got a text message from my mom, and they think that she's having some dental problems, but other than that, she seems to be all
Good.
right.
I'm glad to hear that.
You and me both. But would you like to go ahead and plug your social medias and tell everyone where they can find you at and or how to get in contact with you?
I don't want anybody getting in contact with me. No, uh, Instagram is really I feel like that's kind of my home base. It's become that over the years. So just my name Matthew Zeiss, and that's pretty much or taking care of Elvis is my other page on Instagram. Facebook, it's Zeiss, an international Elvis tribute is the title of the page. I try to check it once a day. I'm not big into Facebook anymore, but Instagram's pretty much the way to go for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, that lovely. I really don't want to be on social media anymore, but I have to post at least once because I am running a business.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah, I'm running a business that's based on people's uh, awareness. So the only way to do that is through social media.
Right. No, in all honesty, I probably would have already quitted social media if it wasn't for the fact that I am a self-published independent author that has no marketing team, and I'm doing all of this shit by myself.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So,
That's what it's really great for artists if you're somebody who needs to get out there for sure. Plus, I met my wife through social media, so I am grateful for it. But by now I would have quit.
yeah. Yeah, I've been told a couple different times, like, oh, well, why didn't you send it out for publishing? Well, that brings in a middleman, and I just didn't want the middleman.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. It can help, but it depends where you're at. It helps if you're already semi-established and you have your own flow going. Then you can bring in a publisher because then you have some leverage of to why you want what you want, etc.
Right. Well, if there is there anything else that you would like to add before we sign off?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we definitely covered a lot, and it has been an absolute pleasure. Um, this is the very first video interview that I've ever done, and I'm quite pleased that it was with you because you've been a joy.
I'm glad we did it on video. I think it's more fun that way. I think it keeps things real. I think there are better answers this way than there would have been if I typed them up. It would have been too finessed, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I always try to make the written questions as natural as I can, but
Yeah,
there's still nothing better than sitting and actually having a conversation with
exactly. And this has been super fun. Great way to start the morning for me and end the night for
someone.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna sit down and start writing after I we finish this, but I'm going to bed.
I think that's what you should do.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you a great rest of your day, and thanks again for agreeing to do this with me.
Thanks for asking me to do it. And
Not
I'm sure we'll talk soon.